back to episode 4 of Not For Everyone. Once again, shout out to everybody who's been following along, and the support, the messages, all appreciated. Especially appreciate the people who open up conversations, want to hear more about specific topics. All those kinds of things really helps continue to drive this and keep it fresh and hopefully relevant into all your lives. One of the things that I found to be very apparent in many people's lives last week, and people I work with, the people around me, all those kinds of things, was the relationship between support and judgment. And they're separate, but they're also connected in many ways. And there are a few key points that I think could help shed some light on some of the things that we go through every single day as people. So I'll start with support, because I think we need a healthier relationship with support. I think support has to be understood as supplementary rather than codependency. And I think there are so many people who immediately engage support as codependency. And you know, as an athlete, we have a saying in the basketball world: to make a shot in front of thousands, you have to make thousands of shots in front of none. And I think, you know, when you're put into a position of attention or into the spotlight, under the bright lights, whatever you want to call it, you begin to learn these things really quickly, that nobody can make the shot but you. It doesn't matter what the coach draws up. It doesn't matter what your teammates provide. You have a responsibility to yourself, and absolutely no one else holds that responsibility. And I think you have to get really comfortable with who you are and the journey that you're going to walk. I think that, you know, many people are too quick and too willing to jump off when it gets hard, or seek out the help too quickly. And I think we're supposed to always find help, but we need to find help when we've exhausted all of our own options. And, you know, we're constantly needing to learn and be a sponge. And I certainly understand all those things, but I want to emphasize the importance of, you know, leading yourself and being a leader of one. And that responsibility is only yours. It has nothing to do with anybody else. It's not somebody else's responsibility to hold your hand throughout your journey. So that's something I want to keep in mind. And I'll certainly touch on specifics about people and things of that nature later in the episode. But I want that to be incredibly clear, that our responsibility to our own journey, to be supportive of ourselves, that's where it starts and stops. You know, some of the work that I do with the Mavericks, it's, you know, you have to assess people and who they are and where you think they can get to, and if they have physical potential, do they have the mental capacity to reach it, and things of that nature. And, you know, seeing people that are, you know, the words that get thrown around about being fearless, about, you know, self-confidence, about all these things, it's just, they're consequences of having supported themselves through so much. And, you know, I think that's part of what you hear, the whole thing around LeBron James and his son. And, you know, this has been a narrative for years and years. And, you know, LeBron has obviously pushed his kid to be the best that he can be. And, you know, being drafted late in the second round. And there's all this media talk about it. And it is unfortunate, because at the end of the day, Bronny is a talented kid, and he's a kid that has absolutely worked his way to get where he was. And people want to raise that about, oh, he's just being, you know, it's his father doing all the work and stuff. And it's a shame, because we lose sight that he was a top high school prospect, and regardless of his last name. And, you know, he's a phenomenal worker that has supported himself. And now the conversation, and this was years ago now, between or the narrative, I should say, was with LeVar Ball, who raised 3 sons, and, you know, 2 of them got to the NBA. And, you know, he's done a phenomenal job as a father. But at the end of the day, LeVar said that star players don't raise kids who become star players. And the point that he was trying to make around it, and we all know for those of you that do follow the basketball world, we know he's just a media circus, to be honest. But he does make the point that when you have no choice but to make it happen, you'll find a way. And LeBron has kind of touched on this, and he said that, yes, LeBron's inherited millions and millions and millions of dollars thanks to, his father's hard work, and his father didn't have that growing up, but he still noted that Bronny has the drive to be better. And to me, that's supporting yourself when millions of people have an opinion on you, and all of them, many of them, I should say, are unjustified, because there's, subjectivity around how they feel about LeBron, how they feel about things being given to him, all those kinds of things. And I certainly think that at the end of the day, we have to give credit where credit's due. And Bronny has learned to support himself. He's learned to take the help of his father, who, to be fair, probably nobody knows best in the world how to become a great player. And you take the support as it comes, but you certainly can't rely on somebody to walk your hand, or take your hand and walk you through your journey. I think the second thing that we look for around support is we're constantly looking for somebody to inspire us, to motivate us, and to push us along the way, right? That's why we always hear, nobody's going to hold your hand and drag you through it. You have a responsibility to support yourself through the ups and the downs, right? Especially the downs when no one's around. And it's your job to make sure that you find the motivation to wake up every day. And if you don't have motivation, then you better be disciplined. And this is where I'm much bigger on discipline than motivation. When people ask, what do you do? And I'm no longer an athlete anymore. So I speak, I'm a consultant, things of that nature. And, so you're a motivational speaker. And I fucking hate when people have to say that. I absolutely hate it, because motivation is so fleeting. The first day of going to the gym, you're motivated. Or January 1st, everybody's in the gym. But come June, almost all of those people are out of their gym membership. And it's because motivation is fleeting. Motivation is easy when things are easy. Motivation is hard when things are hard. And you're nothing more than a front runner than if you show up when things are easy. And nothing drives me crazier than dealing with people who are front runners. People who, when, we use it in basketball, when things are going well and your team's making shots and you're going on a run, and the lead went from 2 to 12 in a minute and a half, and all of a sudden you're up and jumping around and waving the towel and all that kind of stuff. But what happens when things are reversed? Are you the one to clap and pat somebody on the back and to dig in and get a stop and rebound and run a good possession and do shit when it's hard? Like, is that who you are? So I think those that are constantly chasing inspiration and motivation, I just think you have it all wrong. And I certainly don't want to be associated with motivational speakers, inspirational speakers. I just think, to be honest, and this may be harsh, but I think that's a weakness. If you don't have the discipline to wake up and chase your dream, then that's on you. And you're never going to get past any further than where you are right now, because you need all the stars to align, and you need the conditions to be right for you to get better and for you to take a step forward. What people fail to realize is that inspiration is not about achievement. Inspiration is simply progress. It's movement. It's getting one step closer. It's moving just a little bit forward every single day, until a year's time you look back and you realize how many miles you've actually run. So I think for me, those that chase inspiration aren't meant for the greater things that they may see for themselves. And that may hurt to hear, but you have to show up every fucking day. And I cannot stress this enough. You have got to be switched on, and you have to want it. And on the days you don't feel it, you have to be able to produce. And I remember when I first signed to play Division I basketball, there's somebody that I knew that was playing Division I football, and it's like, oh, what's it like? And they said, on your best day, you're probably not going to love it. It's the harsh reality, but are you going to wake up and say, I'm going to get after it today, no matter what? And I certainly learned that over my career and my time, and that wasn't something that came naturally to me per se, but what I wanted and what I was willing to put in were far greater than a momentary lapse. And it doesn't mean that every day you're going to have a good day. It doesn't mean that every day you're going to succeed and be better. It means that you're going to put the work in, and you're going to pay the price, and you're going to deal with the consequences until one day you get to where you want to. And I think when we look at support, we always think that, and we use the term, it takes a village to raise a child. And in a sense, it absolutely does. However, it's not the village's responsibility to make sure that child gets where that child needs to go. I mean, I can look at my own life. I can look at many people I've dealt with. I've, as an athlete, you get to understand people. You meet the parents of the club that you play for, the supporters, and my kid this and my kid that. And, I've always wanted to see the next generation have the tools needed to succeed. And, so you mentor some of the kids, you take them some under your wing. Especially for me, it's always been the kids that have some trouble, that are, mentally not in a good way, and all those kinds of things. And, when they start going down the wrong path, the parents will always ask, well, what can I do better? And, I'm not a parent myself. And so I guess my advice comes with a grain of salt, but from my own experiences and from experiences of watching other people, as a parent, you can give them the tools, you can walk them to the water, but you can't drink the water for them. So it's not your responsibility to how your child turns out. It's your responsibility to put them in a position to succeed, but ultimately it's going to be their decision. And I had a friend who he struggled with drug use for a long time. And, there came a point where he turned his life around, and I was sitting with him one day, and I asked him, I was like, what changed? Like, what, all those years of everybody trying to pull you out of it? And he just looked at me and said, people aren't going to change until they're ready. And I guess I wasn't ready, but I understand now. And, I'm grateful for the support of everybody. But had we measured our levels of support and the outcome that he was achieving, which wasn't good for a long time, how were we ever going to, feel like we were giving enough support or doing enough? And that kind of stuff weighs on people. I know parents that struggle with it. It's just, you have to remember that it's not your responsibility to walk somebody through life, just like it's not their responsibility to walk you through theirs. And once we start taking care of ourselves, that's when support becomes effective. And, I look at, again, my own career, and there were coaches that wanted to help, and I was only capable of taking on so much support at a time. I knew what I had to do, but there were going to be growing pains. I was going to need to learn things. I certainly, wanted to get better, but my capacity and my bandwidth to get better was shorter in the beginning. And as you become more resilient, you become better equipped and all those kinds of things, eventually you're going to start to improve. And, I think that's where that steep curve kind of happens, where it's, incremental. And then all of a sudden, one day, it just clicks. And the click isn't that singular day, it's the 100 that came before it. So support is important, and learning how to take on support in a healthy manner is important. You have to ensure that you're not being codependent, and you have to learn to walk through your journey alone. Everybody, I myself, I have a big vision of what I want to do and who I want to be. And over the next 10 years, that's my goal to achieve it. But I can't do that if I don't learn to walk my own path. And you have to learn to walk alone, because people will only support you as far as their vision allows them to see. And, their fears, their limitations, their experiences, their projections, all of those things come into play. And at some point in the road, they're going to have to leave you, because there's an unwillingness to grow past what has happened to them or what they believe to be achievable or to succeed. And I think you have to be so comfortable walking alone, and you have to walk by faith. You can't see it, but you have to believe that you can achieve it, and you have to feel it within you, and you have to continue to step forward, and you have to be resilient, and you have to be willing to be lonely. And the only way to achieve anything great is to walk alone, because you could be surrounded by the most incredible people and the most supportive people, but again, it is not their responsibility to hold your hand. So there are going to be times where you're going to have to be alone, and it's going to suck, and it is going to feel lonely, and you're going to lose some of those people along the way that you never thought you would. But it's all part of it, and that's the beauty in it. I think too, if once you do get to the top, that lonely walk is what allows you to sit on the throne by yourself. There's no king, there's no queen, there's no ruler in the world that has ever shared a throne. You sit on the throne by yourself, you rule by yourself, but you cannot become that person until you've walked by yourself. And that is one of the greatest lessons that I've learned in my time. And you have to be so comfortable standing on your own 2 feet that every decision you make, you can hold responsibility for. And I see so many leaders who are always questioning themselves, or, they seek out the advice of others before they come to a decision on their own. And I just think the world needs more decisive decision makers in it. And you're going to make mistakes. I get it wrong all the time. I make mistakes. Everybody fails at some point. It's all part of it. It's what makes you better. It's what allows you to know that I've made one mistake and now I can learn from it. And that's how you support yourself. It's supporting yourself is about not fearing failure. It's not being afraid to stand out differently. I mean, I've consulted to teams, and I've been the only one that has held a position, and I've stood on that, and that was my belief. And, it's worked out in the past, and, I'm sure sometimes it hasn't worked out as well. So my responsibility to support myself has led me on this incredible journey. And I think when you learn to support yourself, that's what completely changes the game for all of us in what we can achieve, in how confident we feel, and how safe we feel in, our belief systems. And all of a sudden, you begin to perceive the world differently because your levels of support are different. Now, if you can understand how to healthily support yourself, and it doesn't mean isolate yourself. It doesn't mean be withdrawn from those that are trying to help you. It's certainly, it's not being codependent on support. It's understanding that comes from an internal space, because once you learn to support yourself, a few things do happen. One, it becomes much easier for others to support you. There's no doubt about it, because there's more energy, there's more willingness, you have more acceptance of support. All those kinds of things become really important. Now, judgment is a huge thing. It's one of the best things that I had ever heard was, praise and blame are the same. It just matters how you choose to interpret it, right? It's you've done it right. It's a judgment. You did it right. It's correct. That is good. Those are judgments. Blame is the same. You did it wrong. You failed. Whatever the case may be, it's not good enough. Those are judgments as well. So you're choosing to interpret the message as positive and negative. Instead of saying, this is correct, I can take the step forward, or this is incorrect, this is how I need to fix it, and then I can move forward. There's just one more step when it comes to blame. But so many of us become so emotional around right and wrong, winning and losing, and all those kinds of things. And I think judgment, and this is something I dealt with a lot last week for some strange reason with my clients. And I always go back to this, and people ask, well, what do you do about people that criticize the keyboard warriors, the people that write these articles? And trust me, I've had more than my fair share of negative publicity and press and opinions, and the list goes on and on. But the Japanese have a philosophy, and they believe that we wear 3 masks. And in those 3 masks, the first one that we wear is the one that we put on and we show everybody in the world. It's a guarded version of ourselves. It is more or less politically correct. It's when you walk into a room and you don't know anybody, that's the mask that you're wearing. Now, the second mask is the one that we show our friends, our family, our loved ones, the people closest to us. It's a more vulnerable version of us. It is, it's the one that we feel safest wearing with the people that are closest to us. And the third mask is the mask that we show no one. It is the one that only we know, and it is the one that we hold closest to ourselves, and it is the one that is the most authentic version of who we are. And I always go back to this philosophy because I think it's spot on. The Japanese do a lot of things culturally that I tend to agree with, and I think they have a really good outlook on life. The important thing to understand about that is if you walk into a room and you are afraid of people judging you, what do they think? What are their opinions? What are they saying about me? You have to understand that they're judging that very first mask. That's all that they can judge. They don't know who you are at the core of you. They don't know how caring you may be. They don't know anything like that. And you need to become comfortable with that. They aren't judging you, they're judging your first mask. And so one of my clients called me last week, and on our call, he had some bad press. He hadn't played well, and he had a bit of an emotional outburst, we'll call it, and just didn't handle himself as well as he wanted to. And he was upset about it and disappointed and frustrated. And I said, yeah, but they're not judging you. They're judging one segment of your actions. They're judging that first mask. That's not who you are, because you wear the second mask with me. I know deep down how you feel. I know what you're thinking. I know the things that trigger you. I know, the things that you're struggling with behind the scenes. And those people can only judge you based on what they see, but they can only see what you choose to show them. So the judgment that you are receiving comes from what you're feeling safe to project. And so people that are quite guarded will come across as either stuck up or arrogant, an asshole, whatever the case may be. But that's what somebody is perceiving your first mask to be. That's all it is. And if you don't like any of those judgments, well, first things first, then you better become more vulnerable in public, and you better show people who you are. And if you're not comfortable enough doing that, you have some inner work to start doing. You need to start healing some things, and you can't be upset that somebody has made a judgment based on what you show them. And I think that's something that we don't talk about. We lose sight of. I think understanding that somebody is making a judgment off you, there's one or two things happening, and they're evaluating the mask you're showing, and they're calculating that information based on their own lenses, the projections, the the issues that they find in their own lives or they've had in their own life. So you can't be upset with people because they made a judgment. Now, last week, on a personal note, I had somebody who had some pretty negative things to say about myself and about Carly. And for those of you that know, I will kill somebody for Carly. I want to make that abundantly clear. She is incredibly important to me. She's the most important person to me, and that's not something I'm going to tolerate. And I became really emotional when I was told what was said. And, you know, it frustrates me. It frustrates me to get emotional about it, but it frustrated me because this is somebody that has made a judgment, a very serious judgment, with very little information. I tend not to advertise everything I do in my business. I tend not to advertise a lot of the people I associate with. I think that's one of the things that I've tried to build this business on, is to understand that mental health and performance and, you know, relationships and all those kinds of things, personal development, they're very vulnerable topics. They're very difficult for a lot of people, athletes in particular. I only work one-on-one with athletes as a whole. I've done a couple corporate leaders and things, but there's such a stigma about being vulnerable as a weakness, as you can't handle it. And, you know, I'm here to talk about the difficult things and provide real solutions to move past it, move forward, and better those things in the lives of the clients I work with. And, you know, for somebody, again, to make that judgment on Carly and I based on a fraction of the information at hand frustrated me. And then I came to realize that, you know, they don't have enough information for me to be upset about. This isn't somebody I've told my deepest, darkest secret. This isn't somebody who really knows anything that's going on. I haven't spoken to them in quite a while now. And I think that there's some bitter tension there that it is what it is. But for me, it is disappointing to hear those kinds of things. And I think when we judge others, we're also lacking the empathy of what's really going on in their life. And I think, you know, I look back to the very first time I spoke out about mental health, and nobody knew what was going on, what I had dealt with, what I was going through. I didn't advertise it. I didn't talk about it. Again, the athlete stigma. And I remember being in that apartment in Adelaide, and Carly and I were struggling. We were unhappy. Financially, there were issues. There were a million things going on in our lives. And I, you know, through Carly's influence and her support, I chose to write about my experiences and the outpour of I would never have known, or thank you for sharing your story, or thank you for the details. And some of the things that people have, you know, messaged me through releasing these episodes and whatnot, that a lot of the feedback has been, I really enjoy hearing about your experiences and listening to what you're going through, because it makes me feel like I know that other people are dealing with this as well, and we all deal with it, and nobody's superhuman. Nobody's, you know, immune to it. We all are vulnerable. It's part of the human experience, and it's not about making people softer or society easier. It's just about better equipping the people and the tools that we have. And if judgment is something we're going to struggle with, I don't see how we can move forward as a society. I don't see how we can move forward as a whole. And I just think that our responsibility is to support ourselves and understand that people can only judge you based on the most surface level possible, because unless they're a loved one, unless they're close, unless you confide in those people, you cannot make an accurate judgment on what's going on in those people's lives. Empathy is the biggest thing that we are missing. Carly is the most empathetic person I've ever come across. Her care for people is incredible. And like the things that have been said about her, to her, done to her, like there are plenty of times that we've walked into a store and the woman in front of us has seen Carly, looked her up and down, and then closed the door on her face, or bumped into her in the aisle, or just the dirty looks. And I wasn't a believer in that stuff until I met Carly and we got together. And it is so blatantly obvious and is so unfortunate, because she is the most caring, loving person in the world. The amount of time she's played with a teammate who has had bad things to say about her, who creates a story, a narrative, whatever the case may be, and then a coach calls them the next season. And, Carly is highly, highly sought after. Every team wants her. And she says, oh, look, I've committed to this team. And they said, what about this player? And that player may have had nothing but negative things to say about her. And Carly is like, listen, like, she's a good player. She does this well, blah, blah. Never anything bad to say. She's helped people get contracts. She has helped people sign. It is just incredible what she's capable of. And it's probably my favorite thing about her, to be honest. The thing that blew me away was there were some people on the coast who had some really, they were treating her really poorly. They were saying things about her. They were creating rumors, all these kinds of things. And I asked her, like, how do you handle that? And this is when we first got together. And she said, honestly, if it were me, I would sit down with them and I would just hear them out as to what's bothering them so much. Like, I would just try to help them, because like clearly they're hurting. And I just remember being like, what? Me personally, we're fighting. Some of the things that were being said, it wasn't going to fly with me. And she just sat there, and it's just like, you can't always fight hate with hate. You have to fight hate with love. And I was just kind of like looking at her, and it confused the hell out of me, to be honest, because like where I come from, that's, you don't get mad, you get even kind of thing. But she'll always be a better person than me for it. And empathy gives you peace of mind, because when you have care for somebody else and you understand that they're just hurting, it becomes very easy to not get caught up emotionally, to understand that, your job as a human is to live your best life. And that means you have to take the projections of others on, and you can't take it to heart. You have to understand that they're dealing with their own stuff, and they're healing, and they're going through their own journey, and just be grateful that you have a level of awareness to overlook it. Now, in fairness, I'll be completely transparent. That's not something that I'm always great with. It's something I've certainly grown with, especially since leaving basketball, is understanding that you don't have to defend yourself every time, and you don't have to compete, and you don't have to overcome everybody and everything every second of the day. And it's certainly made me much more even. It's certainly allowed me to remain focused on the things that I want to focus on. But as a whole, it is something that I will continue to grow. And there's no greater person to learn from than Carly. And she inspires me every day in what she's able to achieve and who she is. And the people that have negative things to say about her are actually the ones who haven't bothered to get to know her. And I remember she had a teammate who was giving her a hard time one year, and she goes about it every single way. And at the end of the year, there was a point where they actually had to sit down and get to know each other, and they're on a road trip. And she literally said to Carly, wow, you're actually a really nice person. And I just it's like a facepalm moment. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, before we judge somebody, get to know that second mask to them. Chances are you'll never find that third mask, but understand and try to understand that second mask, because you can conceptualize who they are, what they're dealing with, and then you can better understand how to handle that person, how to interact with them, how to help them in their own journey. It's all part of it, and it just frustrates me that we don't talk more about this. We don't hold a responsibility to be a better person ourselves by helping somebody else along. And like I said, it's not my responsibility to help you, just like it's not your responsibility to help me, but we can absolutely find a way to better society by just having a little bit more care for the person next to us, and a little bit more care for how we approach situations moving forward. This doesn't mean you let people walk on you. It doesn't mean anything like that. It means that you sit down and you make sure you're working through your stuff and you're being the best version of you, so that the person next to you can be inspired by that, so that the person next to you can see growth and see it moving forward. And then they can work on themselves, and then they can inspire the person next to them, and so on and so forth. And I think that's the only reasonable way to move forward, is to continue to be the best version of yourself, and inspire as many people along the way, because life is short. Like, my mother passed away she was 58. For me, it's more than, if that's the case, if that were my lifetime, I'm 70% of the way in my life. So it's certainly important that we understand that as much impact as we can make on a day-to-day basis and over the course of a period, life is short, and don't waste any of it, and continue moving forward, and continue being empathetic to the people around you, and understand that praise and blame are the same thing. It's so important to your growth as a human being, and moving society forward. Now, to finish up, I had an interesting request, and it was if I could name some of the books, some of the things that I've read in my time that have helped me, and I wanted to expand a little bit more on that, and I wanted to kind of shout out some of the people who have inspired me, have supported me, and motivated me to really pursue my speaking and sharing my voice. And I've spoken on Carly, who is huge, but let's start with 3 books that I'm, full transparency, I'm not much of a reader. I'm going to go find particular information, and I'm going to seek it out, and I want to learn as quickly and efficiently as I can. So I do read books. I read maybe a book a month, but I'm not 3 books a week and pounding it out. It's not my style. But I had a very timely book. It was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, who ex-Navy SEAL. He's now a consultant to leadership in many companies around the world. And he takes, in the book, he talks about how you have to understand that every single thing that happens to you is your fault. There's no bad luck. There's no anything like that. It's every bad thing is good because it allows you to grow. And that growth is what makes you a better person. And I decided to buy the book. I was playing in France, and I decided to buy the book. And, my French year was very difficult. The coach had benched me. They fired the coach. The new coach came in. He would start me every game and play me 3 minutes and then take me out. So my numbers were dropping, and then the club wanted to get rid of me. My mom was sick. There are a million things that I could have blamed. And reading the book, I came to realize that it is my fault. Like, I didn't rehab my knee properly. I wasn't in the best shape when I came into camp. I could have gotten more shots up during the week. I could have taken better care of my body between practices. All these things that I could have pointed that it's everybody else's fault. And, my teammates, they try to tell me the coach isn't helping, and it's not the coach's job. If I was as good as LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or whoever, he wouldn't have benched me. But I wasn't there. I wasn't good enough. And those kind of things happened. And I remember when I got sent home, I would wear the tracksuits to the gym every single day. And in the mirror, it was just the constant reminder that I will never let this happen again. I have failed, and I will never, ever let this happen again. And, as a whole, I never got cut, but I got cut for my heart condition for obvious reasons. But yeah, 10 years, and I didn't let it happen again. So certainly a very powerful book, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. The second book is called The Answer, and it is written by Barbara and Alan Peace, who serve as mentors to me. They've been phenomenal. So not a shameless plug. It talks about how our minds work and how we can program it and to achieve. It's very mindset focused. It's a phenomenal book, easy to read, something you can get through easy, and with a wealth of information in it. They've written, I believe, 18 best-selling books, so plenty to read from those two. And the third book that I found to be a really good read would be Atomic Habits. And I think so many people struggle with discipline, and there's a bit of hacking of how you can be better disciplined and why it's difficult to be disciplined. And I think it's an excellent book. Many people have read it, but those are the three books that were really, really beneficial to me. And I've read Goggins, and that was one of the best books I've ever read, start to finish. But it's what you're looking to get out of it is going to be most important. But there are two people in particular that I really want to give flowers to, and the first is a guy. His name's Derek Grant. He goes by DG Mindset on Instagram, and I met him when I was 17 years old, and I was just starting to get into basketball. I had just met this coach locally who worked with some guys who were pros, and Derek was a globetrotter for 7 or 8 years, and he's a phenomenal player. Shoot the ball from anywhere, handle the ball. He's just phenomenal, and he's got a phenomenal story about how his globetrotter contract had been cut. He had a young family. He didn't know what he was going to do. He's got a house that he's got to pay for, all of those kinds of things. And, he started up his own basketball clinic, and it just soars. He trained NBA players. He took kids from the grassroots levels and helped get them to the NBA. And he is now, he has for my money, one of the best Instagram pages out there, where he's mindset and healing, and it's daily motivation. He is full of energy, positivity and enthusiasm. I just, for those of you that are looking for a good follow and looking to grow a little bit, I certainly recommend Derek. He was an exceptional human when I first met him. He, treated everybody with respect, regardless of who he was and his status and the caliber of player he was. And I was somebody who, no matter when I reached out to him, there was always a response, through my college career, through my pro career and beyond. So a lot of respect for Derek and what he's put into over the years and what he's done. And the second person I want to give flowers to, a friend of mine, his name's Mike Spence. I went to prep school with Mike, and Mike showed me the power that a small moment and gesture can make on a person. And I was good friends with Mike in prep school, and he, we kept in touch through college. By no means it's an everyday contact or anything, but Mike was one of those people who, he has the gift of word like nobody I've ever met. Like, that guy can put together a sentence and just, you're latched onto it right away. And he's doing incredible stuff with youth. And I remember he went through a really difficult time after, right after kind of those college years. And, he had 2 kids at the time, and I know things were tough for him. And when my mother passed away, the night of her funeral, there were a couple hundred people at the funeral, and people I hadn't seen in years and hadn't spoken to, and it meant the world to see that kind of support. And sitting at the front after the funeral, everybody pays their final respects. They give condolences to my brother and I, and so on. And I was okay throughout most of the night. Yeah, it's a hard night, but emotionally I was pretty stable. And when I saw Mike, I just lost. I broke down, and it was because he just showed he cared, because I knew how difficult it was for him to get to that funeral. Like, I hadn't heard from him. There was no special accommodations, nothing like that. Like, he just showed up and he just said, "I'm always here for you, bro. And I love you." And it was like, I had gotten that all day, but when you feel how genuine somebody is, like the outcome of that is just so much greater. And um, like I said, Mike has done incredibly well for himself now. He's an absolute leader and mentor for youth in difficult areas who are disadvantaged, and he's keeping them on the right track. He's teaching them how to become men and how to hold a responsibility. And I love what Mike is doing as well. And like I said, a phenomenal follow on Instagram, Michael Inspire. He's doing incredible things throughout New Jersey in particular, and I'm really proud of those two for everything that they've done and achieved in their time. So, for me, that's going to wrap up episode 4. Shout out to everybody that has played a part along the way. I'm really grateful for all of them, and all of the feedback and the questions and the conversations. Let's keep it going. Let's continue to move forward, and let's make sure that we each make the other just a little bit better along the way. Incredibly grateful for the entire journey, for everybody I've met along the way, and the conversations that I've had. And it's been surreal when I think back and I look back at it. So please continue moving forward. Never be afraid to reach out, and I'll see you guys next time.